Hello and welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday. Next two games are absolutely massive and we are here to preview them as well as talk about what's going on. I'm joined this Friday by Jim Orr. How you doing, Jim?
Good. Laura, a bit of a cold, so stand back. I don't want to sneeze
Yes.
on you, so.
Don't pass anything on through the screen. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Brian Degnan, you're also joining us today. How you doing, Brian?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well. Counting the minutes to tomorrow morning, if I'm honest.
Yes.
Just 15 minutes, all right, to crack open the first drink. And I think probably the day previous is a bit early, but I'm on a clock watch.
It is possibly a bit early. I don't know how a game. Well, maybe a game against Rangers with a hangover might be better. I don't know, but who knows?
Not sure this is the right message, guys, to give. Alcohol, don't drink it. It's bad for you.
Drink responsibly.
I feel impressionable youngsters watching the show, so
just say no.
That's water into it, Brian. Aye.
It is, yes.
We'll get plenty to discuss because obviously you guys haven't been on and there's quite a lot happened. The transfer window slammed shut, as they like to say on Sky Sports last night.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll cover a bit of that. We've got obviously the Champions League draw and the opening game against a wee diddy team called Real Madrid on Tuesday. And we look back at the results we've had and a look ahead to the game first. Now, Jim, I'm going to start this thing. So obviously you come on every 2 weeks. I thought I would start a wee segment called Since Jim Was Last On, because I've got a feeling this is going to be a season where we can rejoice in it. So since the last time you were on, we've played 3 games, scored 15 goals, conceded 1, and established a 2-point lead at the top of the table and maintained the only 100% record in the Scottish Premiership with a goal difference of 20 goals. How do you think the last couple of weeks have gone?
Good, isn't it? It's good. What's your next question? I think it was before the Hearts game. I was last on, and I thought they'd make a lot of changes because we're playing in Europe, and they did. So I thought we were in second gear the Hearts game, a bit similar to the Aberdeen game. The second goal didn't come until late in the game. A kind of routine 3 points. Robbie Nielsen moaning as usual. In fact, that was the weekend that Willie Collum gave his masterclass at Easter Road, wasn't it? So,
yes.
He's the most inconsistent referee out, Collum. I think I noticed, I don't know if I never noticed anyone else saying this, but did Willie Collum actually get a good view of the penalty he gave? Because the angle I saw, he was looking through a whole bunch of players and he saw somebody fall.
Does he need a good view, Jim? Before. Does he need one?
He's obviously done this before. Somebody fell in the box. It's just so inconsistent because Hibs had a decent penalty, or just as decent a penalty shout and doesn't give it. He sends off Lundstrom. And he keeps the Hibs guy on the park for 2 identical tackles. So just the refereeing's appalling these days. And then the people in sports are just twice as bad. So anyway, won't go into that. What happened after that was Champions League draw. Was that?
Yeah.
Came after that. We got Real Madrid. What I said 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Hopefully we get Real Madrid because it's been over 40 years since I've seen them at Celtic Park. I wanted 2 teams that I thought we could maybe beat. I mean, everyone at this level is obviously pretty good. And you check the comments on YouTube after you say these things, you think you'd kill Bambi. Like, what's this guy talking about? You think, well, you want to get through, and you want to give yourself a chance to get through. And I mean, I think Leipzig are not that far up in a pot 3 team. So can I give maybe 2 pot 3-ish teams? And we've got a wee chance against those teams. And if you can win some games in Europe, that kind of builds up a bit of confidence, a bit of momentum. Real Madrid next Tuesday will be brilliant. It'll be just a fantastic night. It's a free hit as far as I'm concerned. I'm not so bothered about if we can put points on the board, as long as we play well, and that will give us confidence that we can maybe if we can play well against Real Madrid, then we can play well against anyone. So Leipzig and Shakhtar can follow suit after that. And I think those other 2 games we could win those against those teams. I think the way the dates have come out has been ideal as well. Getting Real Madrid first, where 60,000 going mad next Tuesday. Real's first game, they may be happy with a point. Who knows? And then getting them last, where hopefully they've qualified and the World Cup's just around the corner, and you never know. So I mean, it's a huge leap to get into that last 16. We've got a wee chance, again because of the dates. I mean, if we play Shakhtar first and then Leipzig and then not win those games and then get Real Madrid in the third game, that'd be a completely different game. But Tuesday would be brilliant. It'll be absolutely brilliant. And Champions League package, I think it's all right, £129. I said that last, because you were scaremongering last time, Laura. You were talking about £60 a game and all this kind of stuff. And
I think I was pretty clear it was a rumour, and I don't trust rumours. But you know,
we shouldn't spread rumours, because
No.
that would scare people. So £43 a game. I said £40 a game. It's a wee bit more than I thought it would be. I think that's kind of okay compared to league games. Maybe not okay to 20 is plenty, I suppose. But so that's coming up. And then last weekend was Dundee United, of course. I thought the last 15-20 minutes in the first half were maybe the best I've ever seen Celtic play. They were just unbelievably good. The passing and the movement and the control and the intricacy of what they were doing, and they made chances and they scored goals, and they were just fantastic to watch. I mean, obviously the opposition weren't great, but even if you're playing against a really poor team, to that level of passing and movement, and absolutely brilliant. They kind of chucked it in the second half a wee bit. I thought one third gear second half, and even scoring goals as well. I thought Hitati was unbelievably good. I mean, obviously Abada and Kyogo would get all the kind of headlines because of the goals, but what a great signing he has been. Just dead confident, takes the ball, the guys around him, just shrugs them off, plays 50-yard passes, does the really hard things, but does it really well. Thought he was brilliant. 9-0, bit of history. It's always good when you make a bit of history. Then what? Oh, midweek, Ross County. Loads of changes. Quite surprised the big chap made that many changes. Thought they all played well. Again, I thought Moy, who I thought was a bit safety first in the games I've seen him actually. He's playing a lot of kind of forward balls, put some good tackles in, thought he was good. Thought Welsh was good, just a shame he got injured. He was good, kind of breaking the lines, I think they call that now, coming forward. Turnbull played well alongside him. Thought Calmack was good, further forward, that's his best position, I think. Bernaby, I thought played okay. I saw some things on social media, having a wee pop at him. And I mean, that's a tight park up there. So I think Bernaby at Celtic Park in the big wide spaces will be fine. How do you say the new guy's name? Hacks kind of thingy about bitch thingy.
Haksabanovic.
Haksabanovic. I'll say that 3 times. Haksabanovic. That's right. I thought he was really good when he came on. Looked quite a strong guy, upper body. Looked, you're not going to knock him off the ball that easily. He's not kind of Mikey Johnson where you could knock him out of the road. Dead confident, took people on. And then James does his wee cameo at the end. He'll not play every week, but what a great guy to have in store. So, is that the last 2 weeks?
Yep.
What happened yesterday? So, the new guy came in, didn't the Danish guy came in?
So just at the last minute last
good
night.
Signing. Good signing as well. I mean, I think we got most of our business done pretty early, and then we get a wee transfer deadline story at the end of it as well. So it's been great. I think hats off to Michael Nicholson. I mean, I think it's been an astonishing transfer window, and I think that we all look at Ange. I mean, obviously Ange identifies who he wants in, who he wants out, but the transfer business these days is such a complex thing, and then Michael Nicholson's pulled that off, and whoever's Michael Nicholson's team behind him, and I think astonishing job that he's done. So I think we should give him lots of credit for this transfer window, because the board are back to manager, and then Michael Nicholson made it happen. You see the money that's sloshing about down south. It's Forest of this world are spending what £150 million giving people.
I've seen some ridiculous stats about Notts Forest spending more in this transfer window than like they've spent in the rest of their entire history and stuff like that. So
and then weird. I think we've got really good value. I think that's important. Good value to me is that if you were to sell any of those players tomorrow, would you get more than you paid for them? I think we would. And in some cases, you can have your Matt O'Reillys of this world. You're going to multiply it by 10 or whatever. So it's been a really good transfer window. Everything's in place, so it's just over to the big man now. Just kind of let's just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a thing on social media, and it was a picture of Michael Nicholson, and it said Specky legend, and I thought, I've been called Specky, but it's not usually followed by legend. I can think of another few
I think
words.
he's done remarkably well, and I've said before that what you want from your chief executive is somebody you don't actually see.
Yeah.
Because if you're seeing him and you're hearing him, there's not like something wrong there. And the previous chief executive was just a bit too much in the limelight, and maybe get a bit too involved in things. I think Michael Nicholson's done a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely. Helen McCallum comes up on YouTube and says Celtic v Real Madrid game sold out, and I can't wait for my first ever Champions League game. I hope you enjoy that, Helen. To everybody who's going, hope you have the best night. With that said, Brian, Jim touched on it. You've not been on since the Champions League draw either. What was your reaction to it? I described it the day after the draw as kind of the best of both worlds. Was that your opinion, or were you hoping for a different mix-up of things?
No, I thought it was kind of almost exactly what everyone wanted. So you've got the headliner, Real Madrid. That's the game that everyone's excited for. So you've got that excitement. As Jim says, it's kind of a free hit, especially the fact it's the first game. I think if you go there and perform well against Real Madrid, it's not that you take it. You always want to get some sort of result, but that's a really good measure of where we're at. And I don't think we've got anything to overly fear from Shakhtar and Leipzig. Not to suggest it's going to be easy. I'm not going to necessarily definitely beat them, but I don't think anyone's going to go in thinking, "Oh, we're going to get smoked here." I think we're going pretty confident. And as I say, if we can start off, even if we don't get a result against Real Madrid, which I think we can. I always think we can get something at Parkhead. I always think there's just always that little bit of magic can happen. But even if we don't, as long as the performance is good. And I think this is the thing that Angie sort of spoke about since he came to the club, isn't it? It's just the performance. And then if the performance is right and they're playing football his way, results will take care of themselves. I think that would be particularly prevalent in Europe. And it would be a good sort of measuring stick to see where we're at. So I over the moon with the draw, actually. I thought I wanted I said loads of times I didn't really care who we got, as long as we got at least one sort of, I suppose, marquee game.
Yeah.
And I think Celtic Real Madrid is incredible. And I saw a brilliant thing already, and it was the last two captains, Celtic captains to play against Real Madrid. I think it was Jimmy Johnson and Danny McGrain, and it was Callum McGregor. So that's sort of wonderful in its own way. And football's got me and Kev Graham used to always talk about the romanticism around Celtic, and I think things like that are just always kind of nice to talk about, and there's just always something extra about the club in Europe that I think kind of wonderful, and just hopefully, I don't think last 16's out with our reach, actually. I think it'd be an amazing achievement if we got it. I think we should be considering ourselves, we should be looking at qualifying at least third, I think. So loads to look forward to. Big week.
Big week indeed.
I think we've got a chance, and just to follow that up on, obviously, because of unfortunate circumstances, Shakhtar away is on a neutral ground, so again we've avoided maybe going to some sort of hostile place like Turkey or some place like that, So it's all good. Excuse me.
We're playing in Poland, but for that as well. Again, it's obviously the real life circumstances aside, it's going to be an exciting game. And again, there's a story behind that as well, isn't there? And it's going to be quite an emotional night for a lot of people. So again, just adds to the magic of the occasion.
Absolutely does. Jim, I presume you'll be there on Tuesday night. I would give anything to be there to hear the kind of roar that's going to be going around Celtic Park. I've been to a few Champions League games in my time that's been absolutely deafening. I don't think anything will match Tuesday night. A return to the Champions League after 5 years against the defending champions is going to be something else.
As I said before, this is the first chance of the disco lights as well. And as I said before, it's a kind of bizarre scenario when that green spotlight just hits the players. And as I said before, the other guys are standing in the dark thinking, what's happening here?
Yeah.
It's like showbiz. It's great. It's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to get your thoughts before we go on to obviously the Rangers game as the main focus of the next wee bit of the show. I wanted to get your thoughts on the transfer window. Brian, I'll come to you. I'm not going to bore anybody by going through the entire list of players, but I mean, we've shifted out a massive list of players as well as bringing in a huge number of players. We've talked very often about the new signings and what they'll bring to the team, but I guess what I wanted to ask you, Brian, was how important do you think it is to do the less glamorous side of the transfer window, to do the shipping out and that side of things, and do it as effectively as Angie's done it?
I think it's crucial. I think if you look at Celtics, how we operate is in the sort of business side of things. I think, having that extra, because even though a lot of the players have went to their loan or very low transfer fee, but the wages were freeing up. And again, getting rid of those players as well. I mean, I don't imagine any of them would have been necessarily disharmonious to the squad, but what that does is it allows Postecoglou and his team to focus on the players that are there and keep that quite fairly tight group. that way. So I thought it was incredibly important, and I think it was telling almost how the transfer window was structured, because we got business done quite quickly in what I felt was quite important. The left back, getting Sholta, getting CCV, I think they were kind of essential things we had to get nailed down quickly. Then it was like, right, that's done. That's the first priority done. Then we started to ship, and I think you sort of saw as someone was leaving, someone came in. Well, that's roughly how it panned out, which I thought was interesting. I thought, again, just illustrates the point that it's so essential to clear the deadwood. And I think, I know this is always about Ange living, but it's because he's doing a lot right. And I think if you look at how the transfer window was, everything, almost universally, everyone agreed on what we needed in the team to move forward. Now, that's rare that everyone agrees, especially in transfers and players. Usually called all sorts of names if you say a player, but I think most people said we need, a defender, a left backs, holding midfielder, an extra attack midfielder, a winger, or at least an attacker, and we got them all, plus backup for the keeper. So, yeah, you've got to say an absolute excellent transfer window. The only slight cautionary note I would say, because I think the phrase "best transfer window ever" has been used before.
Yes.
Under Lennon's last window, and you know how that went. No, I don't foresee it going anywhere near that way. But we have to just be cautious about how excited I think some of the players, because they only take the bed in. But I think what you would have to say is Moy, I thought has looked really good the past few games. Really effective. Considering that he was the one that people doubted, like, it's really ambitious, but actually he's filling the role really well. And I think as we go into Europe, I know Jared has spoken about this, I think Andrew go for a sort of almost double pivot. I like Moy next to someone who's a bit more dynamic, like McGregor, or like the big Danish boy. I'll just call him Oliver because I can't say his second name yet. I've not heard anyone say it yet, so I'm not going to take a gamble and pay me the fill off. I think that's going to work really, really well. And as Jim said about Haksabanovic, just looked at, it's so funny, for such a short cameo, it was very telling how he came on. So direct, powerful, tricky, and you think, hold on, Jim will know better than me, and you certainly know as well, Laura. I think sometimes when you look at a player, almost there is a judgment right away. You can go, oh, they look the part, or I'm not sure about them. But in that few minutes, it really looked like we could have a good player here. So, so much to look forward to, and I think, and somebody just an absolutely sensational transfer window. Really, and Jim said, credit to the CEO, because everything we've sort of moaned about was sort of done. It's been efficient, been quick, long contracts, clever business. And he's back completely, and he can't ask for any more.
It's I was saying last night, Jim, in the Acsom group chat that we're not allowed to talk about, I was saying how I just think we've been acting a lot more pragmatically as a club. Things like Mikey Johnston going out on loan, but also simultaneously signing another contract for another year, presumably on the basis that if he has a successful loan period at Victoria Guimaraes, we can actually get some compensation for that in terms of selling him on. So rather than sending him out for, I don't know how long his contract had to go, but potentially the last year of his contract, and then losing him on a free next season. Comparing that to when we lost Jack Hendry in the way we did, are you encouraged to see not just the quality of the players we're bringing in, but the way we're operating in the market?
I agree with a lot of things that Brian said there, but I'm going to use a phrase I used to use years and years ago. Whenever there was a kind of like a company changed something, I'd always used to say, how come we just became so smart? We're going to change this and change that. So how come we just became so smart? And what you described there was like, is it good we're doing this, that, and the other? And you think, well, that's just sensible business practice, one would think.
Yeah.
So if we're just doing this for the first time, how come we just became so smart? How come we didn't do that in the past? Whenever there's any structural changes in any kind of company, you think, well, how come we, why didn't we do that before? So I think if we're doing that just now, we haven't done it before, that raises questions about what happened before. And I think, as I alluded to earlier, that it's quite a complex business, this transfer stuff. And I think you tend to forget, and I think fans tend to forget, that we're dealing with human beings here. And if you say, I get rid of somebody like that, I'll be a to get rid of him. So this is a young guy who's, how old is he again? He's 23 or 24, something like that. It's a young guy. I mean, that's a really young man. He's just, and he's on maybe, whatever he's on, 20 grand a week or something like that, and we get rid of him. So if you're Albin Ayeti, you're not going to walk. You're going to hold on. I'm on 20 grand a week here. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. From his own life, his family life, or his friends, whatever it is. It's a complex thing. It's dead easy to say get rid of him, get rid of that, whatever. So it takes time, and it takes a lot of effort from somebody. It just doesn't just happen. And that's why the fact that they've managed to do this, as I said, says a great deal about Michael Nicholson and what they've actually done. So there's that aspect to it, that the fact that they've managed to manage that. If they're doing things now they didn't do before, as I say, that raises questions about how good they were before. But that seems to be quite a kind of sensible thing that they've done. The guys are brought in again. I mean, the teams in England are going to the same markets. They're going to these kind of markets and spending 30, 40, 50 million on these teams. And obviously, these teams see them coming. It's like, EPL, what we were thinking before, multiply by 10. So some of the players we brought in, and Matt O'Reilly is a perfect example. And I think there's a kind of snobbery factor in the EPL. That if you're at Liverpool and you could have bought Matt O'Reilly for $1.5 million back in January, you think, well, if he's only $1.5 million, he's not good enough for us. We'll wait to go somewhere else. Van Dijk's a good example of that. They could have picked him up for not a lot of money, but he goes somewhere else, so let's spend 80 million. Goodness knows how they can afford this amount of money. Not as far as you were saying there, are spending silly money as well. So we're getting, I think, really high quality players for, in relative terms, not a lot of money. And again, we must have some transfer policy that how much we want to spend on players. What's our upper ceiling in this? And I was dead surprised that we get both Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota. So I thought 6 million for each of them. Whether you think it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's a lot of money in Celtic terms. I know within the Champions League and all this kind of stuff, but you're then committing to wages for a certain amount of seasons, and we brought in loads of players as well. So I think, just repeat myself now, astonishing bit of business to get the players in that we'll get in. And although Ange is the guy that said, obviously, we want these guys in, and these guys don't have a future, somebody else has to make that happen. And Michael Nicholson, and whoever his team is behind him, has made that happen. And the bit you said earlier, Brian, about is it the best transfer window ever? The transfer window that you spoke about there, the one with Barca and stuff like that was a phenomenal transfer window, I think. So the manager had the tools, but he didn't do the job. And that's what I said earlier. I said that we've done all this stuff, it's over to Ange. Now, you've got these, which look on paper, really good players in. So this time last year, I think we're all kind of saying, well, the big man's just come in the door. He's inherited no very much. Our expectations aren't maybe that high. Now our expectations are way up here somewhere. Because not only has he built a really good team last year, playing some of the best football Celtic have played, you've augmented that with however many signings they made, 8, 9 signings of really high quality. So the big man, there's no excuses if we don't do well this year. Not that we'd look for it. So it's down to him. I think it's been a phenomenal transfer window, and it's over to Ange now to kind of make that happen on the park.
Jim, see the point you made there about how we've done things in the past. What's interesting is we also this idea, and I think the idea was get these players in who are come from sort of underserved markets, underviewed markets, and sell them on at a profit. And generally speaking, we didn't do that well. We got it right. We got it very right. But it was a lot of times buy 10 players and hope to sell one at a profit. I think Ange's still working within that sort of remit, but he's just doing it better than most people. And I think if you look at our squad, so I know we don't want to talk about this too much, but if you look at the sell-on value of that squad just now, and offset that against the money paid out, it's incredibly high. O'Reilly is an example. Kyogo, Jota, Carter-Vickers. These are all guys that you go for a substantial amount of money, especially if they perform well in the Champions League. If we've not paid that much for them. And that's an example of the way we've tried to do business for years, but it's not quite worked. So I actually I think we've been better at the system we've put in place years ago, if that makes sense. So I don't know if there's a huge structural change in terms of the idea. I just think the execution is considerably better than it has been. And I think that comes down as much to Michael Nicholson as it does Ange's eye for a player.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's entirely right. I'm just going to run through some of the comments because we've had them flooding in while we've been Well, we've been chatting. Nihilist Jack says, in regards to the Champions League tie, we've got the glamour tie and 2 beatable teams. The draw for once was perfect for us. We've got, in regards to the transfer stuff, Aidan Barrett says we're in a great position that even if we lose a player in January, we already have a ready-made replacement. I think he was referring maybe to some of the stuff we talked about earlier in the week about the way Ange sets up his system and things. He's always got people in his mind that he can have to come in and replace. Alan Robertson says lessons learned from Jack Hendry, as we were talking about before. And lastly, Ryan Kelly says hope both Ajeti and Johnson can do well in their loans for this season. I find the choice of club and league for Johnson a bit interesting. Different culture could be beneficial in the long term. I don't know, Jim, I'll come to you on that particular point about some of these loan players, Johnson and Ajeti, who are maybe closer to the first team than some of the others who've gone out. I guess the way the modern game works with loan signings with an option to buy or an obligation to buy, very often loan signings are basically a player leaving the club. Do you see that as being the case for Ajeti and Johnson, or do you think there is any potential future for them at Celtic Park if they succeed in their loan spells?
I think just to follow on the point that Ryan just made there is that I think the next challenge we've got is like, when do you sell these players? What's the optimum time to sign, sell these players? And that'll be interesting to see how that kind of pans out, because there'll be a point where you think this is maximum value time, and if you don't sell them now, then it's going to depreciate, and that's what happened to in Cham and Boyata and these kind of guys. So that'll be interesting to see the big man works that one out. In terms of the loan stuff, I mean, anyone who plays a game for Celtic Football Club is a good player. And that's what annoys me when people say, he's a bit of a duffer and embarrassed the hoops and all this kind of stuff. These are top class players, and under different circumstances. I mean, Ajeti came in and he was on fire when he first started. He scored the first 4 or 5 games, and he got an injury,
something
and
like that,
fell apart. And these wee things can just set you back. And in a kind of different universe, he's our main striker. And we haven't bought Kyogo and whatever because he's been so good. I think the loan thing needs a lot of thought in terms of where the player goes to, and ultimately it has to advantage the club at the end of the day. So why would you put him on loan at a certain team if it's not going to advantage the club? So interesting choice, for Mikey Johnson. You hope they're playing at a high enough standard. And without getting into that whole kind of B team discussion, if you're not playing for the Celtic first team and you've got a potential future with the Celtic first team, you need to be playing at a level that is going to test you and is going to push you. And I don't know enough about the leagues that they're in, and I think we've said in the past there's a case to be made for putting them out to SPFL teams, because that's the league they're going to be playing in once they come back. And if they can't cut it in an SPFL team, then I don't think there's much future for them back at Celtic. So I think that, again, the transfer market is complex. I think the loan market is complex. There's Man City have their own loan manager and stuff like that, trying to manage.
Yeah.
And I imagine most teams,
Gary
Colby. So I think that's how much I heard that. I think a lot of the bigger teams must have, similar kind of jobs going, and then they'd have to monitor the players in terms of how they're getting on, etc. You don't just loan them out and forget about them and wonder how they get on. So obviously there must be things in place to make sure that works. So we have to be better at that. Hopefully we have been better at that, and hopefully the teams that they are going to are kind of a good enough standard, because I don't think the B team thing's a good idea, but we'll leave that for another day. But to answer the question, I hope he's went to a team that's playing at a good level, and one would assume, again, if it's kind of sensible business practices, that he's been closely monitored in terms of how he's doing, so that if we do bring him back, then we've got a better player than left. And if he's not a better player than we left, then we have to cut the ties and off he goes. And football's ruthless. It's a ruthless business, and there's always somebody over your shoulder want to take your place and what have you. So, and that's a challenge for Ange, to try and keep everyone happy, because I think it's been well documented in the last few days. I mean, we have got a good quality. We've got two good quality players for every position. Yeah. So how do you keep them all happy? And you say, well, we're going to the Champions League now. We're going to be playing 2 games a week. Blah 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 blah. But if you're a player, you want to be playing all the time. And if you're Yakimakis, say, I mean, you're desperate to play. Every time he plays, he scores. And that must be dead frustrating. And I don't think he'll play tomorrow, but again, that must be dead frustrating. So a football manager's job is a pretty tough gig at the best of times, but if you've got that kind of quality there, how do you keep them all going? And the interesting thing now will be that should we not win certain games? I mean, Andrew got a lot more difficult time they got last time. Why did you play him? Why did you play him? Whereas before it was like all we had was those players. Now it's, well, you should have played Giakoumakis because we played Hearts and they're more physical and blah 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 blah. So again, that'll be interesting. It's going to be such a fascinating season.
Yeah. I think this is the strongest squad I can remember, Brian, in terms of what Jim talked about there about having 2 starting lineups. I saw somebody did an outlay of it after the transfer window closed on social media last night, suggesting 2 or 3 different teams we could put out, and which all seemed strong. And I guess that feeds in as well to, I can't think of, looking at the list of players that have left, of one that I thought, I'd have liked to have held on to him, I'd have liked to have seen him get his chance, that kind of thing. I think as Celtic supporters, and feel free to correct me if you feel differently, but I think we're all satisfied with where the squad's at going into the number of games that we've got ahead.
Well, the thing about it is, Celtic should always have 2 players for every position, and you should always have, players fighting each other to get places and stuff like that. What I think is quite interesting, I've said it before, I don't think Ange has like an A team and a B team as such in terms of a preferential 11 and like a secondary 11. I think what you'll see just positions changing slightly, so dropping out, so that squad will be used, and it'll be like that team plays this league, that team plays in Europe. I think the only differences in certain players is the sort of level of athleticism they'll need in Europe. So like I've used Juranovic and Ralston as an example. Like I don't think there's much between them in terms of what they offer, but the biggest differential is how athletic Juranovic is compared to Ralston. You can see the same for Turnbull and Hatate. The biggest difference is clever a footballer as Turnbull is, he's not as athletic as a Hatate or an O'Reilly. See the same for Moy, right? So there is patterns there. We can see they'll probably play in the games where it's a very athletic, but across the rest of the team, it's a pretty even spread, I think. Like we were talking about Giakoumakis there. If he was to start tomorrow, I don't think there's anybody who would be going, oh no, Giakoumakis is starting, what's doing that for? And I think that's an excellent position, and it's almost I think you're right what you say, Lauren, that it's the strongest we've been for a while, but I think that's more an indictment of we've not been where we should be for a while. Yeah. Because I think we should always be in this position. I think anyone that plays for Celtic, I don't like this idea of buying a squad player. I just don't see the point. You should be buying a player that you can step in. Jim mentioned Welsh earlier, and I think him next to Jens, that looked a solid enough partnership for me. I actually think Welsh is really underrated. I think he's your best ball carrying defender, and I think he's really good domestically at that, at charging forward with it. So again, if he's starting the games and they're rotating, I don't think there's as much of a drop off in quality as certainly there would have been last season. So it's just an excellent position to be in. It's so good that when you see a lineup now, you can be excited because eventually see how those different dynamics work. Although they're all good players, they're all slightly different types of players as well, which I think is key. Giakoumakis and Kyogo, they're both excellent strikers. You'd be happy with either of them, but the dynamic they bring to the team is slightly different. And you see that across midfield and at fullback and stuff. I think, like it's been noted before, I think Abada and Ralston seem to have quite a good relationship. More so than some. So it'll be interesting to see if that factors in. So it's just so exciting. Really, it sounds like it's not the best analysis, I don't think, to just be excited about the game, but it's just an excellent position to be in. And I think that whoever starts tomorrow, for example, I think you have to have faith that that's the right choice. And the result will take care of itself.
Yeah, no, I think
also, even though Ange's got a lot of choices, there's maybe no option A or B team in there. In any football team throughout the ages, the spine of your team is the most important bit. You don't mess with the spine of your team, and you need players to make the spine up. And that's a goalkeeper. Joe Hart picks himself. Your 2 centre backs, Cameron Vickers picks himself, and I think there's a question mark over who partners him. So maybe that part of the spine isn't there. You want a playmaker, which we've got McGregor, and you want somebody who can score goals up front. We've got choices for Kyogo and Giakoumakis up front. So I think the spine's there. He's not going to mess with that. And I think he's still trying to find who the partner is with Carter Vickers. And once he finds that, I don't think he's going to mess with that. Unless we're playing maybe a League Cup game or maybe a kind of one of the lower teams at Celtic Park in the league or something like that. So the spine has to be there. And I don't think you deviate once you've got that spine there. And it's almost there, I think.
Hopefully it is. We've got strong teams regardless. And I think what we've talked about and what Brian touched on there is, rather than a first 11, we've got a team that can interchange. And
I think also, Laura, sorry to butt in there, but I think also
a
little bit of caution is that we've not been tested yet.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a test and Tuesday's a huge test. So the kind of conversation might be a bit different next time we're on. That we're saying, we're dead excited, and we've got 18, we've got hundreds of players. Here's 2 big tests for them over the next couple of games. So let's see where we are after those 2 games. I mean, it's good so far. The tools are all there. Big man knows what he's doing. Here's 2 big tests for you. So let's see where we are come Tuesday night.
No, that is fair. But I think the point I was going to say, and the reason I'm using him as an example, is we don't have like a Ralston of a few years ago where you see him in the team and go, oh my God. And the reason I use Ralston as an example is it's not even necessarily change in personnel that's made that change. It's a change in the standard at the club and the expectations of the fans and everything, that the players that are being played are trusted by the manager and therefore trusted by the fans. So if Anthony Ralston is in the team, we know that it's because he's good enough to be there and he's had the performances, and we can spread that to back it up, and we can spread that across the rest of the squad. So it's certainly going to be interesting, like you say, to see what happens when the 2 teams are tested in the next games coming up, which we will get to talk about in a second. Robert Heinlein does make a good point though. If any new signing does well in domestic games, they'll automatically expect to start in Europe. That's why they came to Celtic and manage expectations. Jim, how do you think the manager does that, considering it will be the carrot that was dangled in front of a lot of these players, that if you come, you're playing for a Champions League team, even though the way that the squad has been managed, it might mean that they don't end up playing in the Champions League?
I think it depends on the individual concern, Laura, what kind of mentality they have. Do they see the bigger picture or not? And again, it's dead easy to be a fan and look at this, but if you're if this new Danish guy comes in and he gets straight into the team, who gets left out for him? Is that Matt O'Reilly, for example? So over the last couple of weeks, if you believe social media, he's been linked with some big moves, which would, multiply his salary by 10 times, whatever. And all of a sudden, he's not playing against Real Madrid, where they thought he was going to be playing against. So how does he cope with that? Does he throw the toys out the pram, or does he stick out? Football's a very short career. They have to make as much money as they can over that time. And although that you can talk about the atmosphere is great at the club, the atmosphere is always great if you're winning and you're playing well. And hopefully we don't go through a wee sticky stage. But if we do go through a wee sticky stage, then that will show the character of some of the players. Who are the guys that are going to stand up and be counted at that point in time? I think it's a hard one. That one, who's willing to stick around if you're not going to get a game, and you're always sub, and you only get 10 minutes of a game, and that's a huge thing as well. As I've said before, people think, well, if you come on with 20 minutes to go, you should then impact on the game. But you've only got 20 minutes. To get up to the speed of the game, and your confidence is down because you're a sub. You're not properly warmed up, and then you may only get 2 touches of the ball in that 20 minutes. Then next game you're sub again. So, yeah, I think as fans we think this is dead simple, but if you put yourself in the position of the player, and that's their job at the end of the day, and as I said before, these are really young guys, 23, 24 years. That's just nothing. I mean, you'll know 23, 24-year-old guys, you think they're just kids. And we are kind of adulation for these guys. I always remember Eddie came. Eddie was 21 or something, 22.
Yeah.
Everyone's chanting his name. He's only 21, and he carries all our hopes. But he's only 21. For goodness sake. So, yeah, I think it'll be dependent on the mentality of the players. And I said earlier, a couple of weeks ago, I thought the Bernabeu was a kind of strange signing. The fact that we went to Argentina and brought this guy. Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't sign Argentinian players. Somebody in the comments said, did I know Diego Maradona was Argentinian? And I thought, no, didn't he? Was he really Argentinian? I wasn't saying we shouldn't sign Argentinians, and I wasn't saying that we shouldn't cast our net wide. See, that was a bit strange, signing somebody from Argentina. I can understand if it was playing maybe for a Danish team, maybe a bit closer to us, but so I'm fascinated how you actually go about signing players and who do you pick and how much do you pay for them and all that kind of stuff. So if you're Bernabeu and you get a bit of bother the other week off the pitch and stuff like that, so how does that play in your mind and all this kind of stuff? So to sort of try and answer the question you asked, it depends on the mentality of the players, and if you're a Jota, you expect to start. If you're a Callum McGregor, you expect to start. If you're in that Abada, Yakimakis, Tony Ralston, you think, I'd like to get a game. And what happens if you don't get a game next week, but 10, 12 games and you're always sub? And that must, because you've been training all week, high intensity, as Annie says, so you're ready for the game and you don't get a game, you're sitting in the dugout. And, so I think, obviously they paid a lot of money, but they're still human beings at the end of the day. So how Ange manages to keep all that together, that's a bit of a challenge for him, isn't it?
It is a challenge, as is the game at the weekend, which we'll come on to in a second. But before we do, I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. The spiel by this point, really helps us out. And we've got great football content as well as fully produced music and culture content on the channel. There's usually some new form of content at least every day, as well as the Celtic match coverage, which you can join us for as well. And just before we go on to talk about the Rangers game, I just wanted to highlight, Paul has kindly offered me the platform to highlight that the Glasgow Hospital Children's Hospital charity will be doing a sponsored walk and fun day at, I think it's Kelvin Grove Park this Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you can't do the walk, you can go along, pay for a ticket, and it goes to a good cause, and it's a family fun day as well. So if you're looking for something to do with the kids on Sunday, it will be hopefully a nice day for it, and you can help raise some money and have some fun at the same time. So if you're going, have a great time. You're doing a wonderful thing for children in need. Brian, back to football and matters. Rangers on Sunday. They are 2 points behind us at the moment. They haven't had... it was tomorrow, sorry. Not Sunday. I wouldn't be telling you to go to the fun day on Sunday if it was same day as the game, obviously. Tomorrow is the game. 2 points ahead of them. They've not had quite the flying start that we've had, but they are still going to be a challenge for us, a difficult team to beat. How do you see things panning out for us tomorrow in general? Is it going to take for us to just go at them the way we have every other team, or is there going to be a different approach required?
No, there's not going to be a different approach, even when we play Real, I don't think. I think you may slightly jig tactics a little bit, but I don't think there'll be any change to approach. They both, exploded at the gates, but you have to look at the games they've won in the way they've won them. You look at the PSV game away. I never saw the game, but by all accounts, it was a really good performance. And they kind of set up almost to be put under pressure. So I don't think they necessarily just sit back and take it and try and counter-attack. They do try and press to the front as well, but I feel like, if I want to give them any credit, I think Van Bronckhorst has sort of set them up specifically to play against teams like Celtic, because he knows that's what it's going to be up against in Europe and also domestically. So I think it's going to be a tight game tomorrow. I'd love to absolutely batter them and make it a 9-0, but I think that as excited as we've been getting, not just based on this season, but based on how well we done last season, in fact, we look a bit better. I think they've also improved a little bit for last season. And I just think we need to not be cautious about it, but I think it's going to be a tighter game than people think. I think, what you don't want to do is have people start to panic or get antsy if we've not scored 3 in the first half again, because I don't think it's going to go that way. I think we'll win, and I think we'll win reasonably comfortably for a derby game, but I don't think it's going to be a walkover. I do think they've set up to play against us specifically, I think.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. What I would say is, I think we've got so much individual talent and creativity that is the weapon. When you go back to the 9-0 game, one of the best pieces of play, I think, in the whole game was Matt O'Reilly's ball for, I think, the third goal. Mm-hmm. Took it first time and pinged it directly to Abad, I think it was. It's just an exceptional bit of quality that it's not something that most players can do, things like that. And we've got players like that in a team that can do that in abundance. Hugo's movement's incredible. Jota's always capable of pulling out a bit of magic, and again, like O'Reilly, and I think Hatate as well. We do have better individuals, but I just think it's going to be a game of patience a wee bit tomorrow. But I do think.
I'm sharing your cautious optimism, I have to say. The Godfather says if Celtic are really up for this tomorrow, I can see us hammering them. And Pre says I haven't been so confident of beating them in years. One quick goal and it could be a hammering. Jim, where does this newfound sense of confidence sit with you? I know it's not everybody's favourite position to be in. They'd rather be the underdogs going into a game. What's your thoughts on it?
How many times do you see this? I think we'll hammer them. I think we'll do this. I think we'll do that. And then, it doesn't quite turn out that way. So, been watching football for too many years. I think they're a far better team than a lot of Celtic fans give them credit for. I think they've got a decent squad of players now. I think Van Bronckhorst is an upgrade on the previous manager. As you can see, they're Villa languishing at the bottom of the league, and Michael Beale's doing really well at QPR. So I think we know how they did well before. They were, one kick away from winning the Europa League. They go to PSV and knocked them out of the Champions League qualifier. So they're a far better team than a lot of people think they are. So we talk about our run, and we've only lost one domestic game in however many games it is. Out with the Glasgow Derbies, they're in the same boat. I mean, they haven't lost many games at all. And I think as I alluded to earlier, I thought the Lunsum sending off was a bit harsh the other week, and they dropped the points because of that. If he stays on the park, they don't lose that game. So that decision puts us 2 points ahead. Obviously, we've got to do what we've got to do. I think they'll treat it like a European away game, as Brian said there, in terms of how they set up. I think they'd be happy with a point. I think they can't afford to lose tomorrow. They can't afford to go 5 behind tomorrow. And I think, if they come out of Celtic Park with a point, they'll be happy. I've watched most of their games, and people say, well, why are you watching their games? Because what they do impacts on how we do.
Yeah.
Eventually, if they didn't qualify for the Champions League, financially they'd be in dire straits. And last season, them not qualifying was a bit of a game changer, because if they qualified last year, they might have gone out and spent money on better players, and we may not win the league. And if they're playing Hibs, then we're all Hibs fans, obviously, because as the old saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that's why I watch them, because I want to see how they're doing. And the PSV game, and certainly the game against Hibs, the boy Sands that plays at the back, he's a midfield player, and he looks like the biggest liability they've got. So I'd imagine if he's in the team, someone should be sent off last week, obviously, as well. If he's in the team, that's the guy you target. That's the guy you can play on there. I'll be interested to see the team Ange plays tomorrow. And although I agree with Brian in terms of Ange isn't going to change how he plays the game, I'm interested to see what he does tomorrow, because I think if we play our own game, he plays Abada and he plays Jota on the left, because they were sensational last week. But we know the biggest threat tomorrow comes from Tavernier. It'll come from set pieces, because they're more direct. They'll just ping it right. Tavernier brings it out and he whips in, and the quality is crossing. I mean, no matter what you think of him as a defender, offensively, he's phenomenal. He'll be whipping those crosses in. So do you leave Jota to pick him up, or do you leave Maeda to pick him up? And Maeda's obviously a better bet, because the guy's just perpetual motion. So I think that'll be interesting. I think if he plays Maeda, he's playing him to try and stop Tavernier playing, and he'll play Jota on the right. And Jota's not as effective on the right. So I mean, I'd be happy no matter who he plays, but I think if he plays Abada, he's going for it. And if he plays Maeda, I think he's been a wee bit cautious there. I think the rest of the team picks itself, apart from that centre back again, who's going to partner Carter Vickers. I think Starfelt will get to know it, because of what he did last year, and he's played in these games before, and he's kind of getting back to fitness, and I think he trusts those two, and I think Jens would be at a risk, and Welsh may not be fit. So in terms of the game tomorrow, one of the things I was concerned about, it's not been mentioned very much, I think, is our second half performances against them. And I include the 3-0 game in that. 3-0 game, and I said it on the podcast at the time, if the mantra is we never stop, when you go 3 up at half time, then it should be 4-5-6. And it wasn't. Either Van Bronckhorst changed something tactically, or our levels dropped, or whatever it was, we weren't as good. And people made the point, we just contained them and stuff like that. Well, that's not the Ange philosophy. So I thought, they had the better of that second half. And the subsequent games, they were the better team in the second half. I know the last game at Celtic Park, we should have been out of sight in the first half, but we weren't. And they were hanging on at the end of that game. They should have won that game in the last 10 minutes. So the second half performances have been a bit of a concern. So hopefully that's not something tomorrow. My head says we should win the game. Sorry, my heart says we should win the game. My head says I think there will be a lot of goals tomorrow. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a kind of high scoring draw tomorrow. And like Brian, it'd be great to batter them. It'd be good to win the game convincingly, whatever. If we don't get beat tomorrow, I'd be happy with that. But I think, something I've said before, if you want to win the league, the Glasgow derbies, I think you have to win a couple of them.
Yeah.
And obviously the home games are the ones that we look to win them. So hopefully we can win the game. Hopefully put on a good performance. So we'll see what happens. And hopefully there's no injuries ahead of Tuesday night.
That is a big factor I'm worried about as well, is that obviously we come out unscathed. We all know how physical these games against Rangers can get, and hopefully that doesn't do us any damage for going into Tuesday. Brian, Jim touched on it there, the kind of different options that are available: Abada versus Maeda, Starfelt versus potentially Welsh or Yents, depending on fitness and approach to the game. Given how well the team performed against Ross County with such a different lineup, and the fact that we also have the lineup that's, beat teams 9-0 and the like previously in the season, what kind of lineup do you see Ange going for? Is there going to be any surprises in there for you in terms of personnel, even if you think the approach is going to be the same?
Possibly. I think it depends. It's hard. You don't want to try and second guess a big man because you're usually wrong, right? So I think I do agree with Jim though. I think Maeda should start purely because if you look at, is it Cholak or Kolak, whatever there's, I don't know how you say his name, the big striker.
Chorlak, I think maybe.
If Tavernier's putting balls into him, he's going to go at the end of one.
Yeah.
It just is. So you have to stop either him or you stop the supply or you stop both. So I think Maeda is ideal for that. I also think, offensively, if you look at the amount of goals we scored for him getting in behind the lines and crossing it for Kyogo, I mean, I would say, I think 70% of their goals this season have been that move or sort of doing the same thing. So I think he's key. I think it would be a shame for Abada because he played really well. But I think, that's how I would line up. I also would play Jens over Starfelt. Kind of the same reason as I play Maeda, and that I think Starfelt's weakness is that he can sometimes get caught underneath bigger strikers.
Yeah.
And he gets a bit flustered. Now, his recovery tackles are very good. He is a good defender. But just against that big physical presence, sometimes he gets a bit wild and he gets caught up in things a bit like the way Julian used to do.
Yeah. We saw that against Ross County the other night. He got caught under the ball. I mean, Jens wasn't completely faultless either with it, but it certainly was a factor leading to that goal. And
I think with Jens, with his height in the box, maybe handle that side of things better. I also think he's better passing the ball for the back, and I think they will press as high, and I think they will try and get on any mistakes Starfelt might make. And again, no harm in Starfelt, but he is slightly less comfortable on the ball than Jens, and I think that's very important. So I would play Jens for that. And again, Jens in the opposition box as well, big unit. He's got the height as well, so that would be they were the only two things I think you maybe see differently. I think Jens will start and Maeda will start. Otherwise, I think the rest of the team kind of picks itself for this game. I suspect it was CCV, Juranovic, Taylor. I think Taylor's been excellent this season. I think he needs to start. I think it'll be Kyogo, Hitati, O'Reilly and McGregor in the middle of the park.
Yeah. I think it's ironic that we've talked about the potential rotation of the squad and the use of the entire squad, and yet we also think there's probably a team that picks itself. So Jim,
I think the big man knows. Yeah, I think he knows what he's. I mean, although we said before that he doesn't have any other B team, I think he knows what his best team is, with one or two positions that he may have to kind of play about with. And I think we're quite a small team. We lack a bit of physicality, so I could see the kind of sense in playing Jens. But I think if he plays Jens tomorrow, I'd imagine he's going to stick with him for the season then, because it's a huge game tomorrow, and Starfelt has been his go-to guy. And if he leaves Starfelt out tomorrow, I wonder where Starfelt will get back in.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that particular sort of dynamic, Jim, in terms of, obviously you've talked about for the Rangers game specifically that he trusts Starfelt and so he may go with him, but would Jens be your preferred partner for CCV for the rest of the season, or do you not have a preference?
I've not seen enough of Jens, and Starfelt's been a bit of a whipping boy a lot of the time, and I kind of backed him up last season when he was getting pelters, and I thought he's kind of he looks kind of awkward, and he's playing on the left hand side, and he's right footed, and but I think more often not. And yes, there's a mistake in him, but there's a mistake in every player. I think the other thing is we've not been tested yet, and if you're Jens, you walk into the team and you're scoring overhead kicks, and you're winning games easily, and you maybe think this is a kind of walk in the park. And I think the next 2 games are going to kind of maybe make a bit more way. There's going to be some games this season not a walk in the park. And I think if you're playing games at Celtic Park against all but one opposition, then you're going to have most of the ball, and you're not going to have to defend that much. They're going to have to defend a lot on Tuesday night because we won't have much of the ball. Chances are we'll have a lot of the ball tomorrow, but there's going to be a lot of defending to do. I can see the sense of bringing in Jens because of the physicality of their team and the threat of Colak and the set pieces. They'll be focusing on set pieces. If they're going to score, that's where they're going to score the goals from. I think so. I haven't seen enough of Jens to say whether I think he should win or not. If he was to play on Tuesday night and play really well, then I think that's the centre back pairing, Jens and Carter Vickers for the season. But who knows, because there are so many options.
See, I think Starfelt might actually be better in Europe, just because for that reason. I think he's as just an out and out defender. I think he is very, very good. And I think his positional sense is good. And I think in Europe he's not going to be facing the type of forward he'll be playing in Scotland. So I actually think he might be more suited to Europe. So that's why I think maybe Jens will play tomorrow. And this is what I mean about there's certain positions where I think will suit certain opposition. And that's where you see the changes. I think tomorrow, the reason I think the team picks itself tomorrow is because we're technically far better in the middle of the park. So you want your technical players there. You may find that against one of the European sides, he puts the big Danish boys a double pivot with McGregor, so you get that balance of physicality and energy. Whereas domestically, you don't need to do that. So that's why I think you might see some of the changes. So I say it's no when he dig at Starfelt tomorrow. It's the same with Hugo. I think Hugo will probably start tomorrow. Although I would probably start Giakoumakis because he seems to ruffle their defenders whenever he plays. I don't think they like playing. I think anyone likes playing against Hugo, right? But I think they particularly find it uncomfortable with Giakoumakis because he really enjoys that physical side of things. Whereas I think Hugo's much better placed to start in Europe because he's clever movement. Especially if you're going to go on the counter attack. So again, it doesn't mean they're going to rotate it all the time, but that's kind of how I would maybe foresee it coming up. Yeah.
Also, like you, Brian, I agree that I think Maeda will play tomorrow, but that means Jota on the right, and he's not as effective on the right as he is on the left. So you lose that wee bit of creativity, I think. But I think the team picks itself with one or two positional changes. So it's exciting times. I mean, it's great. I mean, kind of I said before, but if that winter break hadn't happened last time, we'd have been playing Owen Moffat and Joey Dawson and all these kind of guys, back in January. So it's good times. So hopefully we get 2 good results next 2 games, and that's a catalyst for a really good season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just enjoying sitting listening to 2 people talk about the different options and thinking actually there's reasons for all of them. There's nothing I disagree with. It's just good to be in this position and have this luxury. But
who would you play, Laura? Then okay, back to you. Who would you play?
Who would I play? I personally, just overall, I prefer Jens, but I can see your point about Ange trusting Starfelt having played in the fixture before. So I think going forward in the season, I would prefer Jens, but I can see a case for Starfelt tomorrow. So that's me firmly sitting on the fence, Jim. In case you weren't aware.
Just and up front, who would you play?
I think I would probably go. Do you know something? My brother and I were talking about this last night, and he went Maeda, Kyogo, Jota. But I really like you were saying, how effective Jota is from the left. I think he gives us so many options, and I'd be inclined to go for it with Abada because I think Maeda will play against Real Madrid regardless on Tuesday night, and so we might go with Abada from the start, certainly tomorrow, so that Maeda's fresh to do what he does best against Madrid on Tuesday night. But that might be putting too much consideration into the following game and not concentrating enough on this. I'm not sure.
Okay.
but we will surely see. With that said, we're going to wrap things up. Brian and Jim, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a good one. Who knows what kind of a week we'll have had by this time next week, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be...
What's your forecast for tomorrow, Laura? You didn't give us a forecast.
Forecast? Do you know, I'm going to go 2-1 Celtic. I'm going to say 2-1. What about you, Jim?
Well, I said I think we could win 3-1, but I've just got a wee feeling there's going to be a lot of goals and it may end up a high-scoring draw.
Oh, nice. Brian, what about you?
2-0.
Hedging my bets.
I think it'd be a wee bit cagey at points, but I think we'll keep a clean sheet, and I think that's key. If we keep a clean sheet, I think we definitely win.
Excellent. Can I push you for a prediction for Tuesday?
4-0 Celtic. I think.
You're laughing now, Brian, but somebody's going to record this and play this back to you. So just.
Listen, I did it before. I think I would love to see a draw, but I think a really good performance. But they win.
Right.
I think we'll lose 2-1. We'll lose 2-1 on Tuesday.
Do you know, you want to go in and win every game, but I think if you come out with a goal and you don't get a hiding against the Real Madrid, I'd take that. I would take that as a reasonably positive start. So I'll go with that, Jim.
Well, if anybody does want to put 4-0 on and it comes up, he's a wee slice of it.
Oh my God! Do you know? I don't know. 4-0.
Is that after you've been sectioned, of course? Can't he find him? Where is he? Oh, he's away.
Listen, somebody will be doing it, and they could laugh all the way to the bank. Who knows? There you go, Patrick McLaughlin. I'll bring that one up, Jim. 4-3 Real Madrid, or 4-3 Celtic Real Madrid. He says. So, who knows? That would be exciting, although it might not be good for any of our health. Anyway, we will see what happens.
Which Madrid is that? You just said Madrid. That could be, Madrid amateurs.
I'll take Madrid.
Madrid, yeah. No Real.
Blanter Madrid. Don't know.
But we're waffling now. Sorry. Okay.
We're waffling now. We'll be back for the match coverage this weekend against Rangers. For anybody who doesn't know, we are doing cross coverage of that with Celtic Down Under. So the lineup will be at this point unconfirmed, but you'll know it as soon as we do for the game. Jim, Brian, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks everybody in the comments for joining us as well. And on the hoops.
Cheers, Laura.